What was your starter Pokemon? Are you going for Charmander, Squirtle, or Bulbasaur? I mean, we completed the game with each one at some point, but there's only one right answer here. Pokemon was my favourite cartoon of the 90s. Every Saturday morning, I was sat with my Cocoa Pops 2 inches away from the TV watching Pokemon. I never missed an episode. At the time, it was annoying, but I now miss my mum shouting at me to move back from the TV as she said I was going to get square eyes. We weren't wealthy growing up. We didn't get pocket money, but I remember building up the courage at the off-license counter to ask my dad for a pack of Pokemon cards. I mean, it was a pretty smart move to ask him at that exact moment in front of the shopkeeper. And £2.50 in 1998, well, that was a lot of money. But he said yes, and I couldn't have been happier. Who can remember the smell of opening your first pack of Pokemon cards? I'm not sure if this is just nostalgia talking, but I will remember that smell forever. I also remember the first big hit I got. It was a Dug Trio from that pack. I was all excited and I took it to school the next day, where I traded it for a shiny Hitmonchan. I remember feeling gutted a few days later, as Dug Trio really meant something to me, but I was a kid and I was a sucker for shiny things. Pokemon cards of the 90s were for kids. We didn't have scalpers, or at least I don't remember them, and Pokemon cards were always available at the local store. We also didn't put our cards in a sleeve. I put my Charizard in a Velcro roller to show my best mate. Cards were meant to be felt, touched, showed, and played with. They got banned in our school, people kept losing their cards in Pokemon battles, or they kept getting stolen, so teachers banned it. They also confiscated my friend's Charizard, which miraculously got lost. This was a common theme with Mr. Andrews. We had Pokemon meetups where we trade Pokemon, the Pokemon movie, which is just iconic, to the N64 Pikachu console and the stadium game. Pokemon Mania was here and here to stay. The show itself gave us a different type of emotion, from Bye Bye Butterfree to Charmander's flame nearly going out to Pikachu becoming Ash's best friend. It transported us to a different world, a world we wish that we could have lived in. But for us kids, when childhoods were tough, it taught us how to feel. It taught us emotion. It taught us excitement. It taught us that the world didn't just have to be tough. It taught us love. It's why millennials today still love Pokemon. We don't care how much a card is worth. We care about what it meant to 8-year-old me. And after all, we are just grown-up kids. The year's 1998. You got home from school, you went out to play with your school friends, and you're still in your uniform. You get back and start playing on your PlayStation. Mum comes home from work and says the magic words. Do you want to go to Blockbuster? The large sign as you approach, the big blue and yellow storefront, the smell of popcorn as you enter, and you rush to the new release section to grab a copy of the movie that you wanted to rent. You look behind the box and there was nothing there. That was a heart-wrenching moment. Now, if you weren't fighting with your siblings about the movie or game you wanted to rent, your mum would say the magic words to you. You can get a game, movie, and snack. Now, in life, this is the ultimate trifecta. Then you get home and you watch the movie several times, eventually being kind to rewind when you were finished. And well, you did your best to complete the game over 2 days, which, let's be frank, we never actually ever achieved. And then you promised your mum you took the game and movie back, even though you hadn't. But that was a problem for a month's time when you went back to Blockbuster and the assistant told your parents about the fine. Blockbuster Friday nights and Friday nights in general in the 90s were elite. We looked forward to it, and I never once been excited to scroll through Netflix catalogue like I did at Blockbuster.
We have to go
Millennials
back.
were the first generation to grow up without, then with social media. Before social media, our lives would look a little bit like this. We'd wake up on a Saturday morning in 1999, head down for some cereal and hopefully grab the cereal toy. We'd walk over to the TV and turn it on manually to watch our cartoons. And once we were finished, we'd get up, hit the TV button again, and the static from the TV would hit us. We'd then go outside and there was a smell of freshly cut grass, with the faint heat of the early summer glaze. We got our bikes out of the shed and jumped on them, and we could hear the sound of the smoky notes hitting the wheels of each pedal. We'd meet our friends at the green electric box and we'd just go out and play. Now, if your friends weren't at the electric box, we would just find the bikes which were dumped on some grass verge somewhere. Sometimes we get the summer rain which just smell amazing. And we didn't realise it then, but these were the greatest moments of our life. And in general, we didn't even think about the internet on a daily basis. You have to keep in mind that we went from circa 40 million internet users in the mid-90s to 250 million home internet users. Now, that might sound like a lot, but the global population hit 6 billion as of October 12, 1999. We had no social media, no external social comparisons. For sure, we envied the rich kids in the neighbourhood who had it all, but in general, we just used to support each other through the good times and the bad, and we had each other's backs. Part of this charm was complete freedom. We could be ourselves with our friends. You acted how you wanted to be. Well, you were just being yourself. Since we just didn't have to worry about going viral on the internet, being goofy and not being recorded is one of the things kids today really do lack. For me, this comment really summed it up. The 90s was the last decade of the individual using technology rather than the technology using the individual. The late 90s and early 2000s had a different energy. Everything felt more rebellious, like we were given permission to push the boundaries. At the centre of it all was Stone Cold Steve Austin. The Texas Rattlesnake with his bald head, leather jacket, and as he walked to the ring, he was talking to himself and he had so much swagger. We had beers flying everywhere. Austin 316 just kicked your ass, and that's the bottom line because Stone Cold said so. They weren't catchphrases, they were part of our normal school conversations. Austin was living our dream. He was the first guy we saw properly stick it to the man, flipping the bird, hitting the stunner on Vince, doing everything we wish we could do to our teachers, bosses, parents, and getting away with it. The Monday Night War wasn't just wrestling, it was attitude, it was our life, and we'd argue over which side we were on. Now, Stone Cold Steve Austin was the centre point. Jackass was the amplifier. This came out in the year 2000, so we can't really talk about it as part of the 90s, but it has to get an honorary mention when we talk about the Y2K Attitude Era. We did have shows like South Park and Family Guy come along in the late 90s, and they made Bart Simpson look a bit tame. No disrespect to Bart, he's still a legend. All those t-shirts he got banned in the early 90s, but Stan, Cal, Cartman and Kenny were on a different level. We're all singing Chef's Chocolate Salty Balls, laughing at Mr. Hanky the Christmas Pooh, and shouting, "Oh my god, Kenny," like it was normal. It pushed humour way past what anyone thought was acceptable at the time. Music was the same. Bands like Korn were Freak on the Leash, Limp Bizkit with the whole Woodstock saga. It was loud, aggressive and full of energy. Even seeing The Undertaker walking out to Limp Bizkit just felt like everyone was colliding all at once. But the one person who parents feared the most, well, especially here in the UK, was Eminem. Everyone had kids of all backgrounds bleaching their hair, wearing baggy clothes and rapping every lyric as if it was their own. Parents at schools tried to ban him, they just didn't get him. I remember one kid in our school dyed his hair blonde, brought a lighter into class and just started lighting it up in front of the teacher. The teacher tried to kick him out and he just stood there like, "What are you going to do? You can't touch me, I'm not moving." This was the influence. It pushed rebellion to a level that we just hadn't seen before. And then we had films like American Pie. I mean, we're all now basically the same age as Stifler's mum, which is mad to think about. Jim and his pie is still the most iconic scenes ever, and it was a theme again, pushing boundaries, saying things you shouldn't say, doing things you definitely shouldn't do. From Monday Night Wars to Jackass to South Park, Eminem, American Pie, everything collided all at once. It was loud, it was chaos, it was out of control. I felt all of it. I lived it, I loved it, and it was so good. Every moment was a boundary push, and we were just seeing what we could get away with. Today's kids will never understand this, but in the 90s, we didn't make plans. We just walked or cycled around the neighbourhood, knocking on for friends' doors to see if they were coming out to play. And when I say friends, I mean the neighbourhood regulars and that one kid you spoke to for about 15 seconds who had the really cool bike. It was absolute magic, going on mad adventures across town. Nobody had a phone and our parents were at work, so they had no idea where we were or what we were doing. We learned valuable life skills, which is how we learned to get ourselves out of trouble, because let's be frank, we got ourselves in a lot of trouble. We'd buy stink bombs from the store and throw them into the shops and run away. Throw snaps on the ground as people walked by to scare them. We went knocking and running until one friend got caught. Now, I remember doing this with my friend Sam in the neighbourhood, and instead of running away, he decided to pull a Mooney and literally got his ass whooped. When we got hungry, we shared our money for some Freddos, a can of Coke, and we made sure that everybody ate. And then we just carried on climbing trees until your one friend fell off and broke his arm and ended up in the cast for summer. Thinking of cast, do you remember the last time you saw a kid today in a cast? I really can't think of one. We jumped in the creek and shivered about how cold it was, and then we just made up games like Kirby, Block You Off, and we lived life without any concerns. No bills to pay, no jobs to work, just living life. As soon as the streetlights came on, this was the universal time for all kids to go home. It doesn't matter what country you lived in, this was the bat signal. We all knew exactly what to do. And in some cases, if kids, like me, tried to get extra 5 minutes, the TV had an advert asking our parents where their kids were. For me, this is something I miss to this day. I saw 2 kids today bouncing a football, walking to the football field. And as adults, well, we just don't even think about doing that. We don't think about seeing if somebody's free spontaneously. It's all scheduled for 3 months' time. And well, the beauty of being a kid was having a clear diary every single day. The toys of the 90s were different. They were built to last, and they really did mean something. My favourite Christmas ever was 1997. I came downstairs still believing in Santa, and there it was. A PlayStation with Tekken 3, FIFA 97, Gran Turismo, and F1 97. I just stood there staring like it wasn't real. This wasn't just a gift, this was everything as a kid. The following year, I got a Game Boy with Pokemon Yellow, and that was it. Christmas was over. I didn't speak to anyone. I didn't eat. I didn't move. My parents couldn't prise me away from it, even for Christmas dinner. I had a Stan South Park plush that I carried everywhere like it was glued to my hand. The consoles were absolutely elite during this time. The year after my brother got a Sega Dreamcast, and I was so envious. The sound of that console, by the way, when it turned on was absolutely magic. It wasn't spoken about enough, and Crazy Taxi was absolutely elite. It might sound like we had a lot, and that was a lot for back then, but we didn't have loads all through the year. I remember my granddad giving me £20 for my birthday and Christmas combined. We went to Toys R Us, and I bought a WWF wrestling buddy, Diamond Dallas Page. I also remember my dad promising a Pog making machine for one of my birthdays. I didn't get it, and I was about 6, so Logic had left the building by then. Full meltdown, kicking off in the car, screaming, crying, and my dad just left me in the car while he went to quick save with my siblings and came back half an hour later. One toy could make or break your entire day. And then you had things like Beanie Babies. People had safes for them, actual safes, queuing up thinking this was their future pension. With price guides and everything, it was basically the Bitcoin of the 90s, and it turned out to be more like a meme coin, if we're being honest. Toys back then weren't necessarily about the value, they were about attachment. We didn't keep them in boxes, we didn't sleeve them, we destroyed them. We carried them everywhere and showed them off and traded them, played with them until they fell apart. Talk Boys, Pogs, Pokemon cards, Skip It, Moon Boots, Super Soakers. These things weren't collectibles, they were our childhood. And because we didn't have loads, that's what made them special. One toy could last you years, and for that time, it was your whole world. Gaming in the 90s wasn't global like it is today. It was your street, your friends, your basement, your garage, or your best friend's living room. If someone had Super Mario Kart with 2 controllers, they were absolutely worshipped. Gaming in the 90s was life, but not your whole life. You would end up at your local neighborhood kid's house who had multiple controllers and a console. Usually you'd be in a smelly garage or on a couch fighting over who got that good controller. That sticky button was always the reason you lost, or in my case, we had a chair we named the Bugger Eating Chair. In the middle of an intense 1v1 and Tekken 3, the thing would just collapse. It'd leave you in an impossible position to even see the screen, let alone win, while my best friend Kit would just sit there laughing his head off as he snatched victory. Gaming in person was special. We made gaming partitions so our enemy couldn't look at our screen. This was peak gaming innovation with cardboard and tape. When we did claim the victory or loss, we learned about how to glow and how to lose. The winner got the bragging rights. And well, for me, Kit, who I mentioned before, was amazing at FIFA. So when you finally get that one win after the 25 games, you'd retire, go home, as you were the last person who won. Gaming wasn't complete about snacks and drinks, which we had to take with us unless you were at the rich kid's house. We gamed in person for hours and then would leave the console on pause for 2-player game missions and go out and play. We never had a save game cartridge, and we had to hope that mum hadn't turned it off by the time we got back. Today's kids sit in the dark with their headsets on, alone in their room, playing with kids all around the world. Back then, we just played with neighborhood kids, and if there wasn't anybody better in the world than that one person. It was an absolute elite time to be a gamer. POV, the year is 1997. Your parents are in bed and you turn on your PlayStation. You chose not to look at the TV to ensure it loads, as you know if you look, the PlayStation will crash. 20 seconds go by and it moves to the next image on the screen, and bam, you are hit with the loudest PlayStation loading noise in history. Your mum comes in, shouts at you, and you turn the PS1 off. Only to turn it back on 2 minutes later with the noise on mute. There is a reason why millennials are so patient. We had no skip buttons on our adverts, and our TV programs we had to sit through the breaks running back and forth to the toilet in between them. Dial-up was a different beast. The sound is something I would take to my grave, but Jesus, it was slow. I used to get bored logging on, end up playing on my Game Boy and forgetting I was even online. And don't talk to me about trying to download something. A JPEG picture would take hours, a song, days, and a game about 30 years. In the UK, we had to wait for TV shows, music and movies. The US got most TV shows 6 to 9 months ahead of us. They were in season 3 by the time we were just starting season 2. And if you missed a show, well, there were no reruns. You were absolutely cooked. Unlike today's world, we didn't get everything now. Social media provides real-time updates, whether that be the truth or not. Whereas one of the greatest millennial achievements is that millennials spread a rumor that Marilyn Manson removed 2 ribs to pleasure himself. We spread this via school hallways to your random cousin across the globe. The UK, US, Australia, Spain, it reached everywhere and we believed it. Waiting for birthdays and Christmases to buy the latest game, waiting for the VHS to rewind to watch it. This is all part of the anticipation, all part of patience. It's what made things better. Some things that I really do miss about the 90s is the music, movies and entertainment from that period. Music in the 90s went through a mad transition. In 1990, music still felt like it was from the 80s. And then out of nowhere in 1991, Nirvana dropped Nevermind and everything changed. The grunge era was here, it was raw, loud, real, and Kurt Cobain was just something that we hadn't seen before. As we progressed through the 90s, we saw Tupac versus Biggie, two of the greatest to ever do it, both taken way too soon. And towards the end of the decade, we had Eminem, who changed the game completely. Rock was everywhere as well. Blink-182, Green Day, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Korn. They weren't just bands, they were all personality, and well, most of these songs are still on our playlist to this day. For me personally, Blink-182 is my favourite band of all time. Back then, until Napster arrived, music just wasn't instant. You spend £15 or dollars on an album based upon that one song that you heard, hoping the rest of the album was actually good. And then along came Autotune, and most of us heard this for the first time when we heard Believe by Cher. For me, movies were exactly the same. They weren't just something that you watched, they were something that you lived. Going to the movie theatre in the 90s was unreal. The smell of popcorn as you walked in, getting the Tango Ice Blast, and then eventually finding your seat, it just felt big. I remember my first trips, we watched Flubber, Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, and The Lion King, and what my mum would do is drop me and my brothers off, then literally go into town for 90 minutes and come back. They were really different times. And the films themselves were on a different level. Terminator 2, Judgment Day, Jurassic Park, Toy Story. Films didn't just come out and disappear, they stayed with us to this day. We're still watching them now with our kids, and still trying to make remakes of all these films. And then you had The Titanic, one of the most successful films of the 90s, which came with 2 VHS tapes. Yep, you had to get halfway through the film, take one out and put a second one in. That's how big the film was. It wasn't background noise. We weren't scrolling through our phones whilst we were watching movies, TV shows, or listening to music. It was absolutely everything to us back then. Snacks and drinks in the 90s hit differently, and it's not even nostalgia talking here. They tasted better, and of course the ingredients were different then. And there's definitely more snack innovation. Everything was a treat. The portion sizes were magnificent. A Curly Whirly was like carrying around a ladder on your shoulder. A wagon wheel felt like it was coming from a Scania Arctic truck. And a gold bar, well, that actually looked like gold. Going to the shop itself was an experience. Walking and seeing that mad wall of sweets behind the counter at the corner shop was crazy. Or the pick and mix in Woolworths where we'd stack 101 penny sweets and then be charged 50p. The shopkeepers knew what we were doing. Then we had drinks. The innovation of drinks was insane. Crystal Pepsi, Surge, Orbit. It was dareish, it was brave, it was full of sugar, and we loved it. Capri Suns were a lunchtime staple where we'd miss the straw hole every single time and go straight through the back. Sunny Delight had us all believing it would turn orange if we drank too much. In the UK, we got bottled soda delivered by the milkman, Iron Brew, Dandelion Burdock and Keg Shandy, where we all liked to drink from the shandy. And of course, a cold can of bottle of Coca-Cola on hot there for been out for hours. That first sip was absolutely unmatched. And snacks and drinks tied into everything else. Blockbuster Friday nights, snacks. Gaming at your mate's house, snacks. Out all day playing football, snacks. These weren't just food, they were part of our everyday routines. And again, we didn't have loads. Now, we had no Deliveroo, we had no DoorDash. We couldn't get everything instantly, but none of it hits the same as walking out of a shop with a full bag of sweets, a drink in your hand, and your mates next to you, ready to sit on the curb somewhere and ask each other who your third favourite Power Ranger was. Simple times, but honestly, these were the absolute best.